The world does not reward moral excellence or inherent goodness. The world kneels before will, fears strength, and above all, respects the silence of those who have understood that life is a theater of irrational suffering where only the actor who writes his own script survives. We live under the illusion that power seeks peers, that the great seeks the great, and that the conqueror, that archetype who has shaped history with blood and steel, longs for a challenge in every corner of his existence. But that is the romantic lie we tell ourselves to avoid seeing the pathetic fragility hidden behind the throne. The reality is much colder, biological, and disappointing, because if we observe with the cynical analysis scalpel the men who have put empires at their feet, from Roman emperors to modern industrial magnates, we find a disturbing pattern in their intimacy that contradicts their public projection. They were not seeking warriors in their beds, nor intellectuals who could dismantle their arguments, nor equals who challenged their hegemony. They sought submission, ease, conquest that was already won before it began. And the question we must ask ourselves, if we have the courage to look into the abyss, is not with whom they slept, but what terrifying void they were trying to fill with that search for zero resistance. To understand this dynamic, we must first strip the conqueror of his golden armor and see him for what he truly is: a sick will of himself, an inflated ego that, paradoxically, is as fragile as the finest crystal. Schopenhauer taught us that life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom, and the man of power, the one who has decided to impose his will on the chaos of the world, lives perpetually at the edge of pain, in constant tension, in paranoia about maintaining his dominance. His mind is a perpetual battlefield where each subordinate is a potential traitor and each alliance is a temporary truce. So when this individual returns to what we call home or seeks a partner, he does not seek to extend the battlefield to his bedchamber. What he seeks is the rest of the warrior, but not physical rest, rather an absolute psychological rest where his authority is not questioned, where his word is the law of physics, and where he does not have to exert the exhausting effort of manipulation or strategy. The easy-to-conquer woman, in the twisted mind of this archetype, is not an object of desire because of her lack of virtue, but because she represents the only safe space where the narcissism of the conqueror can rest unarmored. She becomes the mirror that does not judge, the smooth surface that only reflects the magnified image he has of himself, and any complexity, any intellectual or emotional challenge on her part would be perceived not as a stimulus, but as a betrayal, a crack in the mirror that threatens to show the monster his true face. This need for simplicity and conquest does not stem from strength, but from a deep and archaic fear of vulnerability that arises when one encounters a genuine other. In the dialectic of master and slave, the master needs the slave to recognize himself as a master. But if the slave possesses an internal complexity, a secret life, or a strong will of his own, the master begins to feel the vertigo of his own irrelevance. Historically, we see that great tyrants surrounded themselves with lovers who were nothing more than extensions of their own furniture, decorative figures whose only function was to validate the existence of the leader. Imagine for a moment the psyche of a man who has spent the day ordering executions or moving millions of dollars in a ruthless market. His brain is saturated with calculation, Machiavellianism, and the need to foresee 10 steps ahead. If upon reaching his refuge, he encounters a woman who needs to be deciphered, who shows resistance, who demands to be conquered through empathy and patience, that man collapses. Not because he lacks the ability, but because his battery of conquest is reserved for the outside world, for what he considers real, while the woman is relegated to the category of resource, of bomb. And this is where the most refined cruelty of utilitarian thinking comes into play. For the conqueror, the complex woman is an unacceptable opportunity cost, an emotional energy investment that does not offer a tangible return in his currency of power. And that is why he dismisses her, not for a lack of her value, but because of his inability to operate outside the logic of domination. However, there is an even darker level in this preference for easy conquest, one that sinks into the roots of evolutionary biology distorted by civilization. The powerful man often suffers from the God complex, a neurosis where reality must bend to his whims, and a woman who is easily surrendered or easy to manipulate validates this fantasy of omnipotence. If he had to make an effort, if he had to change, if he had to negotiate his affection, he would be tacitly admitting that he is not the center of the universe, that there is another sovereign will with which he must pact, and that is intolerable for the pathological ego. The ease of conquest is, in essence, a drug that dulls the conqueror's existential anxiety. By choosing someone who offers no resistance, he is recreating a childhood fantasy of total control, similar to a child playing with dolls that cannot say no. It is a form of relational solipsism, where the other does not truly exist as a person, but as a secondary character in the autobiographical film that the conqueror is projecting in his mind. And here lies the great tragic irony. These men who move the world, who build skyscrapers and conquer nations, are often the loneliest and emotionally stunted, incapable of experiencing true intimacy, because intimacy requires equality, and equality is the antithesis of power as they understand it. By delving into the mechanics of this choice, we observe that the conqueror unconsciously despises what he easily obtains, creating a perpetual cycle of emptiness that Schopenhauer would describe as the essence of suffering. He seeks the easy woman to avoid effort and validate his ego, but once he has her, his value plummets precisely because it was easy, because she did not offer the resistance that gives texture to reality. This leads him to a state of chronic boredom, to a nauseating satiety that drives him to seek more, to accumulate conquests like a hunter accumulates trophies, not for the pleasure of the flesh, but for the compulsive need to reaffirm his dominance over and over again. The woman becomes a number, a statistic, stripped of her humanity, and he becomes an automaton of his own desire, a slave to his will to power that can never be satisfied. It is the myth of sexualized Sisyphus, pushing the conquest's rock to the top, only to see it fall at the moment possession is consummated, and having to start over, always seeking the path of least resistance, always fleeing from the terrifying prospect of truly connecting with another human being. Because connecting is risking being hurt, and the conqueror has built his entire identity, his entire fortress, around the premise that he is untouchable, invulnerable, a bronze statue that does not bleed. But let's not deceive ourselves into thinking that this is only a problem of the great villains of history. This pattern seeps, like slow poison, into the structures of our modern society, into the transactional relationships we see on dating apps, into the culture of discarding, and into the glorification of emotional detachment. The cynical philosophy forces us to look not only at the palaces of yesterday, but at today's attics, where young aspirants to conquerors, intoxicated by ideologies of domination and material success, replicate these behaviors, believing they are the formula for ultimate masculinity. They seek quick validation, instant matches, relationships without labels, fleeing in terror from any woman demanding depth, commitment, or worse, holding up a mirror to their insecurities. The consumer society has commercialized people, turning seduction into an efficient acquisition process where friction must be eliminated. If the product is hard to obtain, the modern consumer, with their brain rewired by instant dopamine, simply moves on to the next. We have democratized the pathology of the tyrant. You no longer need an army to dehumanize the other, just a smartphone and an absolute inability to tolerate frustration or silence. This behavior reveals an uncomfortable truth about human nature under the influence of power or the aspiration to it. Cowardice is often disguised as pragmatism. The conqueror tells himself that he has no time for games, that his mission is too important to be distracted by emotional drama, that he needs a partner who is a safe harbor. But if we translate these euphemisms into the language of psychological truth, what he is really saying is that he is afraid. He is afraid that an intelligent woman will see through his facade. He is afraid that a strong woman will demand that he grow. He is afraid that, at the moment of climax, when masks fall and we are just trembling flesh, she will realize that the emperor is naked and that his power is only a consensual fiction. The woman easy to conquer is the shield that protects the conqueror from this devastating revelation. She, by design or coercion, maintains the fiction, applauds at the right moments, stays silent at the necessary times, and never, under any circumstances, turns on the light in the dark room where he keeps his demons. It is a Faustian pact where he gains comfort in exchange for his soul, and she gains security in exchange for her identity, and both slowly sink into a swamp of emotional mediocrity that shines on the outside with the gold of success, but smells of stagnant water and decay inside. And so we arrive at the core of the matter, at the final dissection of this exquisite corpse that is the Conqueror's mind. His pursuit of ease is not an efficiency strategy. It is a symptom of a spiritual illness. True power, the one that transcends mere coercion, lies in the ability to integrate the shadow, confront complexity, and find peace amidst the storm, not by avoiding the storm. But ultimately, the Conqueror is a frightened child who has learned to use a flamethrower. He burns everything he cannot control because control is the only antidote he knows against the fear of death and insignificance. Surrounding himself with people he can conquer effortlessly, he creates an echo chamber that incessantly repeats his own greatness, isolating him from reality, making him increasingly delusional, more paranoid, and more disconnected from the very source of life, which is friction, conflict, and growth that only arises from the encounter between two equal forces. He has conquered the world, yes, but has lost the ability to inhabit it. He has gained the bodies of many, but has not touched the soul of any. And on long nights, when the silence of his palace or luxury apartment becomes deafening, perhaps, just perhaps, he feels the cold of that emptiness that no easy conquest can fill. If we scratch even further beneath the surface of this pathology, we find a dimension that official history often hides behind the veil of romance: the Pygmalion fantasy, the desire not to find a partner, but to construct one. The Conqueror, in his megalomaniac arrogance, often sees the woman as easy or inexperienced, not as a finished being, but as raw material, a pliable clay waiting for the master's hands to shape her. This is perhaps the most sinister manifestation of his will to power, for he is not content with dominating his partner's present, but seeks to colonize her future and rewrite her past. By choosing someone malleable, someone whose identity is not carved out by experience or intellectual conviction, the Conqueror grants himself the role of architect of another's soul. He decides which books she should read, what clothes she should wear, which opinions are valid and which are naive, shaping the woman in his image and likeness, or rather, in the image of his needs. This creation provides him with a supreme narcissistic satisfaction. When she speaks, he hears himself. When she acts, he sees the extent of his own will. There is no otherness, no mystery, only a perpetual echo that confirms to him that he is the god of this microcosm, eliminating any possibility of dissent. It is a form of spiritual cannibalism where the woman's personality is devoured and replaced by a script written by him, ensuring that never, under any circumstances, will a voice challenge his domestic hegemony. This dynamic reveals a pathological aversion to the unpredictable. Chaos is the natural enemy of order, and the Conqueror is, above all, an agent of imposed order. In the external world, chaos is managed with violence, laws, or money. But in intimacy, chaos manifests through genuine human emotions, which are disorderly, illogical, and volatile. A woman who is easily conquered, or who submits without resistance, is perceived as a controlled variable, a resolved equation that will not introduce entropy into the Conqueror's closed system. He fears real emotion because, by definition, emotion is unmanageable. If she cries for reasons he did not authorize, if she laughs at things he does not find funny, if she desires something outside the plan, the illusion of total control is broken. That's why the preference for ease is also a preference for emotional superficiality. He prefers a doll that smiles perpetually over a woman who feels deeply, because depth is an abyss where he could get lost. Schopenhauer would tell us that this man is fleeing from the very essence of the will, trying to turn life, which is blind and painful force, into a static and secure representation, a diorama where nothing moves without his permission. But there is a hidden cost to this artificial security, a price paid in the currency of vitality. By surrounding oneself with submission, the conqueror condemns himself to progressive intellectual and emotional atrophy. Just as a muscle that finds no resistance weakens, the mind that encounters no opposition becomes flaccid and delusional. We see this in dictators at the twilight of their lives, surrounded by sycophants and complacent lovers, losing contact with reality, making disastrous decisions because no one in their close circle dares to say no. The woman easy to conquer acts as a facilitator of this decay. By offering no friction, she allows the conqueror's worst impulses to grow uncontrollably, like weeds in an abandoned garden. She does not sharpen her wit. She does not question her craziness, and thus, he becomes a caricature of himself, a giant with feet of clay who believes he is invincible only because he has eliminated everyone who could bring him down. It is the loneliness of the tyrant taken to the extreme, being surrounded by bodies but absolutely alone in the mind, shouting in a soundproof room where no one can hear the truth, only the pre-recorded applause of his own imagination. Let's now analyze the economy of time in the mind of the conqueror. Because for these men, time is not money. Time is distilled life. Complex conquest, courting a woman who knows her worth and demands to be treated as an equal, requires a massive investment of time. It requires long conversations, listening, humility to wait, and waiting is an insult to those who believe they own the clock. The modern conqueror, obsessed with efficiency and optimization, sees traditional courtship as a market inefficiency. Why spend months discovering the layers of a complex person when sexual and domestic validation can be obtained in hours or days with someone who does not demand such an investment? This transactional mindset reduces human relationships to a cost-benefit analysis. The easy woman is a low-maintenance and high immediate performance asset. However, this mercantile logic ignores that the value of the human lies precisely in what cannot be measured or accelerated. By applying factory logic to the bedroom, the conqueror obtains a standardized functional product, but lacking aura, lacking that divine spark that only arises from friction and mystery. He becomes a consumer of spiritual fast food, satisfied but malnourished, filling his life with empty calories that inflate his ego but kill his spirit. And we cannot ignore the sadistic component, that dark shadow Freud glimpsed, and that modern psychology often fears to name. In the preference for easy conquest, there sometimes resides a latent desire to degrade. For certain profiles of power, pleasure is not in union, but in confirming the other's inferiority. Choosing someone who is considered less intelligent, less wealthy, less powerful, less experienced, allows the conqueror to exercise a silent and constant contempt. The ease of conquest validates their supposed biological and social superiority. Every time she yields without fighting, he reaffirms his status as an alpha predator. It is a vampiric dynamic where he feeds on the other's weakness to feel strong. He doesn't want her to grow. He doesn't want her to learn, because if she were to rise, he would have to look her in the eyes. And for this type of man, horizontality is a threat. He only knows how to operate vertically, looking down from his pedestal or looking up with envy at those who have more power than him. Equality is a foreign concept, a language he doesn't speak and has no intention of learning. This pattern is monstrously amplified by current technology. Dating apps have industrialized easy conquest, turning human beings into cards in an infinite deck. The digital conqueror no longer even needs the charisma or strength of their predecessors. They only need an algorithm and a thumb. Ease has been democratized, and with it, the banality of evil in relationships. Men who in other eras would have had to develop some virtue to attract a partner can now access an unlimited supply of superficial validation with minimal effort. This has created a generation of couch conquistadors, dopamine tyrants demanding instant submission and dismissing any woman who requires more than 2 sentences to be understood. The culture of ghosting, of quick discard, is the logical culmination of the conqueror's mentality applied to the masses. If you're not easy, you don't exist. If it requires effort, you're a system error. We have created a society of functional sociopaths in the love realm, where empathy is seen as a bug and cruelty as an efficiency feature. But let's delve into the final paradox, the poison that the conqueror voluntarily drinks, believing it is nectar. By always seeking the easy, he becomes incapable of love, and by being unable to love, he becomes incapable of being loved. The woman who easily gives herself often does so not out of love for him, but out of love for what he represents: security, status, money, or simply a refuge from her own fears. He, in his narcissism, confuses this transactional interest or pathological dependence with genuine devotion. He lives deceived, believing he is adored for who he is, when in reality, he is used for what he has. It is the ultimate existential cuckold. He believes he owns the woman, but she, or her submission, possesses him, tying him to a role, to a mask he cannot remove. If he lost his power tomorrow, if his empire fell, the easy conquest would evaporate, seeking the next safe harbor, and he would be left only with his broken arrogance. Deep down, he knows it. That suspicion gnaws at his insides in the early mornings. That certainty that his worth is extrinsic, not intrinsic. That is why he needs to accumulate more power, more conquests, more noise, to drown out the voice whispering that, stripped of his conquest attributes, he is a mediocre human being unworthy of love. So, when you see that archetype of a successful man with the trophy partner who doesn't speak, don't feel envy. Don't see there a triumph of masculinity or a biological victory. Look with the eyes of the surgeon, and you will see a tragedy in progress. You will see a man terrified of life, hiding behind a wall of submissive flesh. You will see someone who has given up the greatest adventure of existence, true encounter with the other. He has exchanged the gold of human connection for the costume jewelry of control. And now, the question returns to you, relentless as a spotlight in an interrogation. What parts of yourself have you mutilated to make yourself easy to conquer by the system, by your boss, by society, or by a partner? Or to what extent do you seek the easy so as not to face your own insufficiency? The mind of the conqueror is a virus, and maybe, just maybe, you are already infected, seeking shortcuts on a path that only makes sense if you walk with bleeding feet and an open heart exposed to the elements. The cage is open, but the fear of flying is what keeps you inside. Are you ready to leave? Or do you prefer to remain the king of your own security prison?